In one corner, we have the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world's militaries, the United States of America. Facing them is a formidable tag team, a South American alliance comprised of nations with a rich history of producing some of the world's finest guerrilla warriors, alongside their northern allies, Canada. While the Canadians may be lacking in modern military hardware, they are poised to bolster their southern counterparts' strengths. For nearly 2 decades, the United States has shifted its focus from large-scale conflicts against potential adversaries like Russia or China to a global war against terrorism. Today, we are pitting the U.S. against Canada and South America in a hypothetical battle we've dubbed the Rumble in the Western Hemisphere. Currently, the United States enjoys an extremely close partnership with its northern neighbor. Canadians and Americans have fought side by side since World War I. As one of the founding members of NATO, Canada and America have been steadfast allies in safeguarding the free democracies of the West. In modern times, both nations collaborate extensively in anti-terrorism campaigns worldwide. The partnership between the U.S. and Canada has transformed North America into a stronghold of liberal democracy. Its strength is amplified by close ties with South American friends like Brazil, with whom they frequently engage in joint military and peacekeeping operations. But what would happen if this robust system of alliances were to shatter, and Canada and South America were to transition from the U.S.'s close allies to formidable enemies? How would a conflict in the Western Hemisphere unfold, and who would ultimately emerge as the victor? Canadians are renowned worldwide for their politeness, yet they have consistently demonstrated their ferocity in combat. With a strong military tradition and a close partnership with the U.S., Canada fields a highly modern and capable military. However, due to its relatively small size, it ranks as the 21st most powerful military globally as of 2019. In terms of manpower, Canada's military boasts only 64,000 active duty personnel, supplemented by a reserve force of 30,000. Their defense budget stands at $21 billion, significantly less than the U.S.'s budget of $716 billion. At sea, Canada can rely on 12 frigates and 4 submarines, along with a fleet of patrol vessels primarily used for peacetime waterway policing. Despite its modest size, the Canadian Navy is a modern force, fielding the highly capable Halifax-class frigates. These domestically designed frigates were built for anti-submarine warfare, but also possess impressive air defense and anti-ship capabilities. Although they are over 2 decades old, each frigate underwent a modernization program in collaboration with the U.S.'s Lockheed Martin, equipping them with modern weapons and radar. Unfortunately, Canada's submarine forces are somewhat outdated, still relying on British-built Victoria-class diesel-electric submarines. While still very capable vessels, the British decommissioned their own Victorias at the end of the Cold War, 4 of which were sold to Canada. Although limited in number and lacking the endurance of the U.S.'s nuclear submarines, Canada's submarines could still pose some unpleasant surprises for the U.S.'s fleets in a potential war. On land, Canada fields a force of 80 German-made Leopard 2 tanks, with varying upgrade packages, although none are upgraded to the most modern A7 configuration. Nevertheless, the Leopard remains an incredibly capable vehicle, often outperforming even the U.S.'s M1 Abrams in tank challenge competitions. However, Canada faces significant challenges in the air, primarily due to its aging fleet of 53 American F-18 Hornets. Canada urgently needs a modern fighter jet, but also lacks qualified pilots and mechanics to maintain its fighter fleet in operation. A recent audit by Canada's Office of the Auditor General revealed that Canada cannot currently fulfill its obligations to the highest NORAD alert level and its NATO obligations simultaneously. This paints a rather bleak picture for Canada's Air Force, rendering the nation incredibly vulnerable in a modern war. As a vital partner with the U.S. in maintaining North American air defense, Canada's problems are also America's problems. However, an ongoing program to procure new fighters should equip the Canadian Air Force with modern jets by the mid-2020s. South America is once again returning to the battle arena, having fared poorly against the United States in their last encounter. To refresh your memory, check out our USA versus South America video to see how that went down. This time, however, it will be different, as they'll have northern allies to call upon. The South American alliance once again features 11 nations: Brazil, Argentina, Peru, Venezuela, Colombia, Chile, Bolivia, Ecuador, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Suriname. Once more, it's Brazil that boasts the most capable military within the alliance. Brazil faces many of the same issues it encountered last time, most notably the fact that its military is quite limited. While its allies can provide a significant amount of manpower, they offer little in terms of modern military equipment. Primarily focused on fighting internal conflicts, South American forces consist mostly of light infantry, although at least half of this infantry is mobilized. Tanks have never been a priority for South American nations, leaving Brazil and its nearly 500-strong armored forces as the only heavy ground combat forces the South American alliance can bring to the war. Unfortunately, Brazil's tanks are mostly inferior Leopard 1s. Remember, Canada has the Leopard 2, which wouldn't stand a chance against America's M1 Abrams. They also have a token force of approximately 100 obsolete American M60 Pattons, a tank first introduced in 1960. Vastly outgunned and outnumbered, Brazil's tank forces will struggle to hold the line against an American armor assault, especially since the entire alliance fields very little, if any, heavy fire support platforms. They have a small force of mobile artillery pieces and attack helicopters, which themselves would be easy targets for U.S. air assets. In the air, the South American alliance offers only a small force of obsolete American Northrop F-5s, along with Dassault Mirage 2000s. While a very capable fighter, Brazil's Mirages only number a dozen and would struggle to maintain air superiority over South American troops. At sea, the alliance can field 30 frigates of varying capability and modernity, as well as a submarine force of 32 diesel-electric subs, which also vary in capabilities and modernity. However, where the alliance excels is in the large number of jungle-trained special forces, some of the best in the world at jungle warfare. Total South American military strength numbers at 1,026,927 active-duty personnel, with almost 2 million reservists. However, these reservists receive very little training and are poorly equipped. In the event of war, they would require weeks or even months to be trained and equipped sufficiently to carry out basic offensive operations. Positioned smack dab in between the Canadian-South American alliance, the United States boasts an active-duty military force of 1.2 million personnel, with a reservist force of 860,000. Unlike the South American alliance, the U.S.'s reserve forces receive regular training and equipment upgrades, and many even see combat deployments. America's reservists could be ready for battle within a week or two at most, supplementing the U.S.'s active-duty combat force. Rated as the world's #1 air and naval power, these two branches of the American military are individually more powerful than many of the world's militaries combined. The U.S. Navy even features an air force that is itself stronger than many modern nations. With over 13,000 aircraft, America's air superiority is overwhelming in both capability and scope. Although the much-vaunted F-35 is still not fully combat capable, and the F-22 faces low numbers and spare parts problems, which would limit their sortie rates, that still leaves thousands of extremely capable fourth-generation fighters and attack aircraft, along with 971 attack helicopters. One of the best attack helicopters in the world, American Apaches have proven themselves time and again in various theaters of combat, most famously in 2003 in Iraq, when a squadron of Apaches flew into a planned ambush over the city of Karbala. 31 Apaches flew directly into an ambush planned by the Iraqi Republican Guard Medina Division. Facing cannon, missile, and RPG fire, incredibly, the Apaches lost only a single helicopter. So how would this 2-on-1 deathmatch play out? Who would emerge victorious? If you've watched our previous episode featuring the U.S. versus South America, then you're already familiar with the numerous vulnerabilities of South American forces. Lacking modern transport, a navy, or an air force to defend those transports, the best that South America could achieve in this war would be to dig in and await the American assault. Canada, with its limited military and vast territory to cover, yet few vital cities, would not require a large number of American forces to neutralize. Its aging air force and limited fighter availability, along with a very small navy, would leave Canada with little ability to resist blockades by the U.S. Navy's Pacific and Atlantic fleets. Vastly outnumbered in personnel and heavy equipment, Canada would quickly succumb to a northern thrust by American ground forces, supported by an overwhelmingly superior air force. Simultaneously, the U.S. would deploy some of its overseas battle groups to South America to initiate amphibious invasions of key South American cities. Once more, the alliance would struggle to resist the invasions, given the extremely limited availability of military equipment and the difficulty in transporting large numbers of troops across the rugged terrain of Central South America. The few existing modern roadways and rail lines would be destroyed by America's naval air forces. Any forces attempting to reach the American beachheads would have to do so largely on foot and through thick jungle, or risk annihilation at the hands of American air forces. Brazil would be the U.S.'s initial target, as the nation poses the greatest threat. Brazil's far inferior naval forces would offer little resistance to the impending amphibious assaults. Ultimately, the United States would only send major ground offensives against Canada, whose terrain and modern infrastructure would offer much faster transport for American forces. Being primarily wilderness, the U.S. would only have to capture key Canadian cities to declare victory over its northern neighbor. In the South, the U.S. would once again enjoy the ability to land large amounts of troops amphibiously anywhere it pleased, easily pushing aside any naval forces the Southern Alliance could muster. With most of South America's strategically or economically significant cities located along the coast, there would be little need to push into the jungles. South American forces and their jungle fighting experience would fare far better than U.S. forces in such an environment. Despite the addition of Canada to the mix, a U.S. victory would still be overwhelmingly one-sided. Although fielding a larger number of troops, the Canadian-South American alliance simply lacks the modern combat equipment and force multipliers that modern nations possess. It has no hope of matching American military and technological prowess. Thankfully, in the real world, the U.S. and its Western Hemisphere neighbors enjoy a strong tradition of cooperation. The bond between America and Canada as liberal democracies is virtually unbreakable. While its northern neighbor may represent a fraction of its own military strength, the U.S. nonetheless relies heavily on Canadian military power to protect North America from overseas enemies. Together, they make the continent one of the most militarily secure in the world. In your opinion, who do you think would emerge victorious in this real-world scenario? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fantastic content.